Welcome back to another episode of the Canon on the Boomer Bus channel. I'm your host Terry, and today doing a spoiler review for The Flash. Won't be before you long because I watched it again, as I said before. I typically, for these bigger movies, I like to see it one time, do my initial reaction, see it a second time before I give it a final grade, spoiler review, all that stuff. But for this movie, I felt pretty much exactly the same after seeing it a second time. And I've mentioned this before under reviews. Usually, the first time I go see a movie, pretty much any movie, but especially superhero movies, it feels longer because there's so much new information. You're trying to take it in and you're analyzing so much. But the second time for me usually goes quicker because I know what's going to happen and I really feel the actual runtime of the movie as opposed to the first time where it feels like it's all not double, but it feels like it's longer. This movie I went to go see and it felt longer. That was already a bad sign to me. We got to, I want to say, the part where they went to go see Batman. Already I felt like, man, we still in this movie. And so I knew it wasn't a good sign. I don't actively hate this movie. I think if I was to give it a score right off top, it would have been somewhere like an 82, 83, the B minus. After seeing it this time and reflecting on it and all those different things, I probably put it right at a 79, right below. I mean, it's still almost a B minus, but I think, again, I try to think of it in terms of grades. Is it a C range or a B range? And I put it right below a B range at a C plus. There are some things that are good, like I said in the non-spoiler review. And there's some things that really kind of take me out of it. And there's some things that's all over the place. This movie in total is just a really mixed bag package. So since it's the spoiler review, I'll go through the movie. And like I said, a lot of the points that I said in my initial reaction are the same. So check that out if you haven't. So as far as going through the movie, opening up with him, I like all this stuff. I know some people are iffy on it, but what I like about it is you really think about it. We didn't see a whole lot of Barry Allen as the Flash because we couldn't see a whole lot. When you're talking about a Justice League movie that has so much to do, and it was the first time that they was on screen, and so we couldn't really get to a lot, but although I do think they did some cool things, but now that you got time to really sit with it, you can really get into the Flash because it's not much more than your powers, maybe a little bit of your character when you got an ensemble team. But when it's your own movie, you get into all the little intricacies. On top of that, because I would say compared to like Aquaman, it's interesting to me to see Aquaman's little intricacies. But when you talk about the Flash, he's juxtaposed against a huge backdrop like the CW. Now, you could talk about the other Flash stuff, of course, but they had a long running show where you were intimately with not only Flash, but other Speed Force characters. So there's certain things that it was cool to see. So seeing that Barry is tracking his calories and he's trying to eat and he's always late and all those things, now it started to feel more like Flash. I don't think, anybody's going to straight copy another character from another show or movie. And we're not asking you to, but there are certain things that are integral to the Flash. Like him being hungry was in Justice League Unlimited cartoon show or Justice League cartoon show before the Flash CW. And it was in comics before that. So certain things are just the Flash. It's not like, oh man, that reminds me of the CW. No, it reminds me of the Flash. So he's late. He's trying to, he's impatient. He's trying to get his food up, all that. So the beginning part was cool to me. I mean, the fact that this dude is just a typical, whatever random guy that likes to hear himself talk, and he's making Barry late and anxious and all that. That's cool. Obviously, that's paired up with what we know about this Barry Allen, who's a little more, I was going to say schizophrenic. I wouldn't say that. I don't know the correct word, but he's a little twitchy. So anyway, they show him in the Speed Force. I thought that was super cool. The scene, not the whole scene, but the scene with the hospital and the babies, did not like. I still don't like it. Like, I get it, and honestly, even the second time when you look at it like, oh, this is just a funny part, people enjoy it. Even when I looked at it as a comedy, I smirked a little, but I'm just like, there's nothing about the flash or the tone or anything that makes me feel like a bunch of babies falling out of a hospital thing was the right call here, especially how goofy they made it and how bad the CGI is. And we know that's the whole thing throughout the movie. The stuff with Batman, I thought was cool. That's when you start getting this synergy, and that's what makes all this so bittersweet when you're talking about James Gunn creating a DCU as opposed to what we had before. It's so bittersweet because now we start to see the synergy because you can do it. And as much as people are like, oh, you need a solo film, no, you don't. I was perfectly fine the way they introduced everybody. And then we're starting to get to the payoff, but because of the politics, because of the money, the business, and everything, we're not going to ever get it. But we got a little glimpse of it here. So Barry, Central City's close to Gotham, running over there, helping Batman out. Batman's chased people in the streets, doing his thing. Wonder Woman comes save him. It's all cool. The lasso joke was cool to me. Like, it was a good time. That's when it really felt like Saturday morning cartoons. That was fun. So then we move on from that. And I thought they did a great job. I mean, Barry at his job is whatever, but Iris West, with them not being close, because that's one thing in the CW that's very different, is that him and Iris grew up together. That made it so awkward for a lot of reasons, but it worked. So this one, they don't really know each other like that. And it seems like she's just using him for a story. I thought that was a nice twist, and for him to immediately recognize that, but he still likes her. Okay. We go through all that. The big plot point is Bruce Wayne helped fix the footage, but his dad doesn't put his head up, so we don't know that's him. Now, huge plot hole. Really the only one that I care about, because you probably talk about a lot of plot holes. The only one that I really care about is the fact that when you're talking about Barry's dad killing his mom, most versions of that, I'm like, that doesn't really hold up to me. It depends on how you do it. We know it's supposed to be the Reverse Flash that does it. Now, if he's moving super speed, put the knife in his dad's hand so his fingerprints on there, or he knocks his dad out and then brings his dad there and lays it next to him with the knife in his hand, whatever, make it really look like it was him, that's fine. But most of the time, his dad's not even there, which to me is like, why would you jump to the conclusion that he killed her? If he called 911, any situation in any decade, I just think about it. 80s, 90s, 70s, 2000s, whatever. If someone called the cops, oh my God, my wife was stabbed, would they come in and be like, you killed her? I don't buy that. In this movie particular, which I understand the can of tomato, the small change, I understand the spaghetti. It's great symbolism, but the story doesn't hold up. You simply say, I was at the store when this happened. Okay, the security footage, we can't see you. Check my bank statement. I bought this at this store at this time. There's no way that it could have been me. Check my receipt. There's no way that it could have been me. There's so many ways without high technology to prove this man was not the one that killed her. That always bothers me in a lot of Flash stories. And in this one in particular, they made it too easy to prove that it wasn't his dad. Now, obviously, that's not the huge consequence. The huge consequence is losing his mom. But as far as him having a double whammy, I don't see how this man could be in jail for that long. Even if you want to say it was back in the day and they had a technology, which doesn't make sense. Again, at some point, y'all be like, there's some easy ways to prove it wasn't him. So, without more background and without them setting him up, like really making it look like he did it, that was a huge plot hole to me. But anyway, I thought it would have been cooler. It works out, but I just thought it would have been cooler if they had the appeal and his dad didn't get off. And that is what pushed him to go visit the old house and go in the Speed Force. But it was cool. It still worked. So he figures out he could change time. Batman tells him not to. He does it anyway. Classic Flashpoint. Then he gets pushed out. Now, not retroactively, but by the end, I like that it tied in because it was like, who is this monster? Why did it hit him? Whatever. But it was very purposeful. He pushed him out on that same day so that he would give his younger self powers. Cool. The one thing that I think, and I mentioned this in my non-spoiler, but one thing that I think a lot of people aren't pointing out is everyone keeps saying how good Ezra was as the two Barrys, and I agree. But they keep saying that Barry is younger, um, and that's why he was like that. But people really are missing the boat. Like, it wasn't because he was younger; it's because he grew up with his mom. And again, we have a more, what did I say earlier? I forgot the word I used, but you got a Barry that's kind of ticky, kind of socially awkward, all that stuff. And this Barry in this timeline is totally different. He's pretty chill. He's like, no, like if you notice, he doesn't have any of those ticks. He doesn't have any of that. He's just like a quote unquote, he's a little more of a burnout, but he's quote unquote cool kid. And so that's because he grew up with his mom and he developed differently. So it wasn't that he played a younger version of himself. He played a version of himself that grew up completely differently. And that adds to the performance of Ezra Miller. So one thing that I left the first time thinking was we really spend a lot of time with Barry. We don't spend a lot of time with the Flash. And some people might like that. But I just think the stuff they chose to do with both Barrys was a little whatever. Like the conversation with him in his room and the pillow fort, all that, I didn't need that. The part where he's looking at the pictures and he sees him using the monkey as a dartboard, good stuff. The rest of that, didn't need that. The part when they go to get him the powers, good stuff. Afterwards, all the jokes, like some of it was cool, but I think it was too much. We didn't need all that. The fact that Olderberry lost his powers made it obviously you won't see a whole lot of the Flash to the end, and it's cool. We spent some time with Barry, but I just felt like they could have did more stuff. And to be honest, I think, and I get why they didn't do it, but I think it would have been better if he did tell them that, yeah, mom dies. And so that he can spend time understanding what the world would be like if his mom didn't die. You could still, or if his mom died, you could still get to the same point at the end where he's like, I'm not letting that happen. You could still get there, but you just take a different route because it became more of just a babysitting type thing. And instead of them really bonding to understand how different they are as individuals. And that to me raises the stakes, not only for older Barry, but for younger Barry to say, without our mom, things can turn out way differently for us personally. And that would have been more time spent, which would have been more impactful later when you think Barry died trying to get his powers, older Barry, when they have to turn on each other at the end. It would have been just even more powerful if we spent more time doing that and less with the roommates and all these random jokes. And it's not that none of it was funny. It's just that I think we spend so much time, we get bogged down before we meet Batman. And that's, like I said, this time, that's the part where I was like, man, this movie is dragging. So then we meet Batman and Keaton. All that stuff was good. I thought the way he attacked them and kept hitting older Barry, that was funny to me. The way younger Barry reacted, all that was good. And I know some people feel like Batman kind of jumped into it quick, but I enjoyed that too. I think, that speech he had to him, he said, I know you watching. You had an Alfred. Mine's had an Alfred. Some things inevitable. I know you lost your parents. I'm trying to save mine. That's enough to get Batman to jump into it. It was enough to get him in the animated Flashpoint really to jump into it. He's trying to save his parents. And that's enough for Batman to understand. And so then they go. Now, the scene in Russia it was kind of weird. Just the way they escaped, quote unquote. That part threw me off. Like, they ran back into the room where she was being kept, jumped to the bottom and go through the grate. They don't know what's down there. That part was weird. But it was cool to see Batman in action and fighting. And you can forgive everything the Flash does because it's younger Barry. He doesn't know how to be a hero. So it was cool. It was cool. All that was cool. And then there was, I think, an obvious edit. And I know the director came out recently, said it's a 4-hour cut of the movie. but I think it was an obvious edit with Supergirl because it doesn't make any sense. She goes to see Zod, see them raging war. She says no. They look up and see her. Next thing we know, she back at the Batcave. Like, wait a minute. Like, what changed her mind? Why didn't they go after her right there? Like, what? You know, she just comes back and she says she'll help them. And it's supposed to be a big moment, but we don't really know why. So you can see there's some editing there. And then I like the sequence with him trying to get his powers. I wish they explained it more. It looks like the chemicals hit him, but the lightning bolt doesn't. But he still got hurt, so I don't know exactly why it didn't work the first time. But just like in the trailer, it was cool to see her take him up there and do that. That part was cool. And again, it would have been a stronger hit. And they could. Now, I don't like the gross and gory, and they do some weird stuff in here. And I know Muschietti's a horror director. Some people like that stuff. I don't. That's one scene where I thought they could have got more graphic. Like him having his tooth knocked out earlier and putting it in with super glue, so unnecessary. Cut that out. Some of the stuff when he first goes into the Speed Force and his face gets all warped and weird, I don't need that. But when he was electrocuted, you want us to think he might be dead. They could have made it more graphic. You think about the comics and the animated movie. Like, make it look like this man is on the brink of death. And he just kind of look a little burnt. But anyway, so he comes back. That was cool. Then they go to the final battle. And it was just weird. I mean, it made sense. She went after Zod. Batman's fighting in the air. Those two fighting on the ground. He's trying to coach up young Barry and all that. But then we get to the point where Supergirl dies, and it's like, whoa. And then Batman dies. And honestly, in the moment, the first time I saw it, I wasn't thinking about timeline. I wasn't thinking about, time travel. I was just like, oh, they're dead. Because it's like, you already know you messed up time by doing this. You can't just keep changing time. But obviously, and then he doesn't do it. It was the young Barry that wanted to do it. So then you start to see this rift between those two. And I thought it was played really well. The thing I didn't like is the shrapnel or whatever. Like, that was just stupid. So he tried to phase it, cut his arm. Okay, I'm thinking we done. Now he's using it as a weapon. It's a whole piece of metal in your arm. And every time you come back, there's more metal. And it's just like, at no point you didn't phase out of that, like take it out, like heal up. Like I'm very confused. And to the point where this Dark Flash kind of is just full of it. And it's just like, it's just weird. It didn't make any sense to me. Why would you let yourself keep it? Just, I don't know. It didn't make any sense. So I thought the way they showed the worlds colliding, the universes colliding was cool. And really showing you what it means for these multiverses to happen, because you have these universes, different colors, their own little thing floating. You don't even see them, but the more they messed up their universe, there starts to be holes ripped open, and you see what these other universes are. And then the Dark Flash keeps messing it up, in their universes affecting other universes, causing them to collide. So I thought it was a cool visual in that sense. CGI was terrible, as everybody talked about. It looked real bad, and it takes you out of it. And then he ends up killing young Barry, which means he never existed, which is fine. I mean, that's, I guess, how it would work in this universe, but it's inconsequential in any way, because that Barry would have never existed if our Flash goes back and does what he's supposed to do. So that was just kind of awkward to me. But then he goes back and helps his, or puts the can back from his mom. Now, I still feel like her talking to him, even if she didn't know who he was, that would have changed something. But it was fine. It was an excellent scene. It was very emotional and all that. A little awkward that she's like, I don't know you, but I'm gonna hug you. But it was good. It was good. They played it up the right way. Now you get to the end. Apparently he changed the cans to the top, and so his dad showed his face. That takes away the arc. Some people defend it, and I don't get it. How do you have him go through this whole movie having to understand some problems don't have a solution? Sometimes you gotta let it go. You can't fix everything. And then he tries to do it again. And so I see people saying, well, it's a smaller. We don't know that. We don't know what it could cause. And so obviously we got the George Clooney Batman, but we don't know anything of what that could have did. And it continues to set you on a path where you messing with time. And it's like, what was the point of the movie? Do you not understand that you can't do those things? So that was annoying. George Clooney was kind of a cool moment, I guess, but you know they're not going anywhere with this movie, even if it did well, but apparently it's not. So yeah, I mean, like I said, just a mixed bag. The end credit scenes I hate. Oh my god. Or not the scene, but like the whatever you want to call it, with the dog and all the babies. That I hated that, because this is one of the scenes I really didn't like in that movie. But overall, as I said before, I think there's something really great in this that could have been had. I think it's the second full trailer where that tone and those moments in the movie have that tone, but altogether that's not the movie. If you would have made that the movie, made emotionally resonance and all that, and you could have time for jokes and stuff, but if you would have really honed in on that and made it a story about love for his mother rather than all this kind of goofy stuff, and you could even kept the opening, not the baby scene, I hate that, but if you could have kept the opening with Batman and all the fun Saturday morning cartoon stuff, but if you would have made the rest of this movie just really about that story of the berries and all that, it would have been, I think, absolutely great. But they threw in a lot of random stuff, and I don't think it all works. So, like I said, end of the day, I give it a 79 C+. That's it for me. Go down comment section, let me know what you think. Share it around, get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, if you heard it here, it's official canon.